Welcome, everyone. Today, we're going to unpack an absolutely unbelievable true story, a massive financial ambush. Seriously, we're looking at this wild moment in history where literally one single Wall Street trader brought an entire sovereign nation's currency to its knees. It's a crazy story about vulnerability, insane leverage, and just astronomical sums of money. And, it perfectly highlights just how fragile our interconnected global economy can actually be.
Okay, let's dive into this. $15 billion. That is the staggering, almost incomprehensible scale of the financial position used to attack a single country's economy, and it happened in a matter of hours. But to truly wrap our heads around how one person wielded that kind of financial weapon, we really need to understand the target of the attack first.
To figure out how this happened, we've got to look under the hood of New Zealand's financial engine. We're relying on a really comprehensive historical deep dive from the Institute of Oriental Studies of the Russian Academy of Sciences. Their research gives us this fantastic, detailed look at the nation's financial reality throughout the 20th century.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that New Zealand presents this fascinating economic paradox. Despite being a highly developed, modern nation, 56% of its exports are food, things like meat and dairy, and another 11% are raw materials. They rely so heavily on agricultural exports, which is a profile you typically expect to see in a developing nation, definitely not a fully industrialized one.
Part of the reason for that unique economic makeup, extreme geography. New Zealand is intensely isolated. It's situated way out in the southwestern Pacific Ocean, roughly 2,300 kilometers from its closest neighbor, Australia. Because of that massive distance, New Zealand has historically had to fight incredibly hard to carve out its own economic stability on the global stage.
And that fight for financial independence, it really started taking shape with the Reserve Bank of New Zealand. Before 1934, private banks just issued their own notes. But smack in the middle of the Great Depression, the government realized, hey, we desperately need a centralized power. So they founded the Reserve Bank. Over the decades, they slowly took full control of the nation's money, evolving all the way up to those complex, secure polymer notes by 2009.
One of their biggest modernizations actually happened in 1967, and this brilliantly illustrates how they adapted. They made a massive leap, completely moving away from the incredibly complicated New Zealand pound, where, get this, 1 pound was 20 shillings and a shilling was 12 pence, to the clean, decimalized New Zealand dollar. They essentially just exchanged 2 new dollars for every old pound, streamlining their money so it could actually fit into a fast-paced global market.
But of course, simply modernizing the physical cash was only step one. As we move into the 1980s, the nation really found itself struggling to compete globally. So to survive in the modern international market, New Zealand had to start undergoing massive, structural, and frankly, super painful economic restructuring. It's a fascinating political paradox, too. These radical free market reforms, removing agricultural subsidies, completely deregulating the financial sector, and most importantly for our story, floating the national currency, well, they were actually implemented by the historically left-wing Labour Party. Floating the currency suddenly opened up the previously sheltered Kiwi dollar to the fierce, unpredictable forces of the global market for the very first time.
And man, that newfound openness, it perfectly set the stage for disaster. Fast forward to October 19, 1987, a day forever known in financial history as Black Monday. Absolute panic swept across the globe as stock markets crashed, sending terrified investors scrambling just to find safe havens to park their cash.
The sheer destruction was entirely unprecedented. The Dow Jones plunged a brutal 22.6% in a single trading day. It wiped out approximately $500 billion in value. World markets were completely destabilized, and currency values were just fluctuating wildly as billions of dollars aggressively shifted around the globe.
Right in the middle of all this global chaos, a target emerged. Leading up to the crash, investors have been steadily pouring money into New Zealand, which caused the newly floated Kiwi dollar to surge in value. At its peak, it was overvalued by a staggering 40% against the US dollar. Think of it like a giant financial balloon, fully inflated, stretched to the absolute limit, and just waiting to be popped.
Enter the attacker, Andy Krieger. He was a brilliant, highly aggressive currency trader working for Bankers Trust, which was one of the largest banks in the US at the time. Krieger was this rising star with a reputation for making incredibly bold moves, successfully managing a massive $700 million trading limit. And looking at the global board during the panic of Black Monday,
he spotted that glaring weakness in New Zealand's overvalued currency.
Let's move to and see how this built, because to execute this ambush, Krieger didn't just casually sell some currency. Oh no. He wagered roughly $30 to $40 million in real cash to open 100,000 short options. He was essentially placing a massive, concentrated bet that the price of the New Zealand dollar was about to experience a catastrophic collapse.
But guys, here is the truly insane part of the story: the leverage. Krieger utilized a staggering 400-to-1 leverage. Let that sink in. That means for every single real dollar he put down, he was controlling $400 in the market. He literally took his tens of millions and instantly transformed them into a multi-billion-dollar financial weapon pointed squarely at Wellington.
Remember that $15 billion number we talked about at the very beginning? Well, that's exactly what this terrifying leverage created. Krieger's short position effectively exceeded the entire actual money supply of New Zealand. Think about that for a second. One single Wall Street trader, just sitting at a desk in New York, wielded more financial power than existed in the entire target nation. Absolutely mind-blowing.
So, as this massive tidal wave of Krieger sell orders hit the market, the Reserve Bank of New Zealand was completely blindsided. They panicked. They simply didn't have the reserves to buy up their own currency to defend its price against a $15 billion assault. Government officials reportedly even called Bankers Trust directly, literally begging them to stop the attack. But they were completely overwhelmed.
The collapse was immediate, and it was violent. The central bank was forced to devalue the Kiwi dollar by 5% almost instantly, just to try and cope. But the momentum was way too strong. By the end of the trading day, the currency had plummeted by up to 10%. That overvalued balloon, it hadn't just popped, it had been totally obliterated.
So the crucial point is, when the dust finally settled on Black Monday, the payout was staggering. Andy Krieger walked away with an estimated $300 million in sheer profit for his bank. $300 million! And that was from a single day's work of identifying a weakness, applying massive leverage, and basically breaking a sovereign currency.
But, while Krieger was celebrating this massive win in New York, the collateral damage back in New Zealand was just devastating. The nation's stock market dropped 15% immediately, and the bleeding didn't stop there. By the end of October, the market had cratered by a total of 60%. It took the country years to recover from the economic crater left by the single, targeted strike.
It's just an incredible piece of history, and it really forces us to look closely at our modern financial system. In an interconnected global market where money moves at the speed of light, how vulnerable are small, open economies to the massive, leveraged financial forces of Wall Street? It's a terrifying power dynamic for sure, and it's definitely something to ponder the next time you see the stock market ticker flash red. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive, and I'll catch you on the next breakdown.